Sorry, this is a problem with Zoom, which always starts with the mic live. I don't know why.
It's a setting. It's a configuration in your Zoom profile.
Yeah, I've tried. Doesn't work.
Never mind. I tried.
Are you one of those crazy open source people who runs Linux?
I might be.
I'm a crazy open source person that runs Linux and doesn't have the problem.
Ooh.
Works for me.
Now we can throw down.
On RHEL and Mint.
Oh,
Hey, Tim.
I need to come back. Oh man, I gotta go find my wife.
We're doing a sunglasses battle today.
Oh man. Okay, I got something.
There we go.
All right, it's gonna get bigger as the meetings progress.
I've got super hot shades if y'all really want to go.
Yeah.
You got what?
I said I've got super hot shades if y'all really want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Bring it, Paris.
Honestly, your transparent frames right now are like cooler than anything I've ever done in my life. So
here's the thing: when you have glasses, you can't play the sunglass game.
oh, that's true.
Well, mine only change in the sunlight.
I mean, you can get like a couple of pairs of sunglasses, but you can't have like the collection.
Look at Tim. Look at Tim.
If you order them online, they're like $30.
Not like with my eyes, man. It'd be like
mine are pretty screwed up.
What's that?
Mine are pretty screwed up.
All right, well, maybe I should give it a try.
All right, should we get this meeting started?
Let's do it. Who's bosoning?
I am boasting today. I'm just going to follow up from last time and sort of follow on the same theme that we did last time. If we can get a note taker, that'd be great. Does someone want to volunteer to take notes?
I think Josh already did. Thank you, Josh.
Forced volunteering.
Well, he said he did, but.
All right, so first up is the G Suite Slack, managing proprietary community info without access to support folks. We'll walk the milestone stuff later. Paris, want to kick this off?
Yes. So we just received a G Suite from y'all. It's contributors at kubernetes.io. We thought that could help us with various things that were listed in the proposal that I'm not going to go through now. But we've come into a predicament right now where we've realized that Google support folks could help us tremendously with coming up with possible workflows and things that could help us from an operational perspective, because we have G Suite. And as part of paying for G Suite, you get access to support folks. And this kind of rolls into the same with the other community infrastructure that we manage with Slack and things like that. We're operating proprietary software that has access to support individuals that want us to use their tools right and appropriately. But we don't seem to have like appropriate lines of communication to these folks. Right now, for instance, with the G Suite, we put in a service desk ticket to ask CNCF to help us reach out to Google, because I'm not, and the contributors at is not the primary on the G Suite account, and Google will only talk to people who are primary points of contact. Same with all of our other infrastructure as well. So I'm just kind of curious how we can come up with a better system here to have the people on the front line doing the admin work these individuals and support folks, especially like even on the security side, et cetera.
Yeah.
Just stuff that we're kind of currently working on day to day.
That's sort of why I joined, was to back Paris up on this one. I actually run on the side, I run my nonprofit completely off of Google's G Suite and Slack, and it's just incredibly convenient. It makes things much easier for calendaring and emails. I know there's all sorts of issues here, like you don't want vanity email addresses or anything. What I was suggesting is that we have a dedicated G Suite account for each SIG chair, and that chair is responsible for calendaring and taking email requests and so forth and setting up groups and so forth. But I was just here basically to back up Paris and float that idea.
Is Brandon on the call, Phillips?
I am, yeah.
There was an issue that we kind of assigned to you while you were out, which is basically the integration piece between the CNCF and budgeting and funding. I think this kind of falls underneath that umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I joined late, so I didn't really, I get the request, I just don't understand the context of what's like, well, one thing is like these service desk tickets that are being filed would be really helpful if they were shared with the Kubernetes. There's like in the service desk, there's the ability to share. And I haven't seen any of these service desk tickets that Paris is talking about.
Sure. I think Paris can probably refile, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm getting the ticket links out now.
Awesome. Yeah, the issue is that like people are using their personal email addresses for the calendars, and it's a mess, and we don't know where anything is. We don't have like central Google Drive repositories for people to find stuff. And if this is going to continue to grow, we need to make this an admittable process, and we need to decide like, are we just going to pay for G Suite, or are we going to roll this all ourselves? And if we're going to roll it all ourselves, we need to start now, because it's going to take like a year to get it up and running to the point where we've got a well-oiled machine.
Well, doesn't this falls underneath the auspices of modifying the CNCF charter for specific functionality we would request from them, and then offloading that responsibility to someone who's been dedicated to doing this administrative work? Is that not a fair supposition?
And we're fine doing the administrivia work. That's the thing. Like the people on the front line want to do the administrivia work. We just feel like Google and Slack and all these other people that are working the support and the solutions architects will actually be able to like architect us out some really cool stuff and like help us with some best practices of other like super large groups that have G Suite and things like that. I feel like we're just getting handed keys to these humongous cars and saying drive, and then like having to read the manuals ourselves when like we pay for this stuff, and it's like these people will help us do the thing.
Okay,
So
who's the primary? Excuse me, sorry.
So the primary on the G Suite account is the person, whoever owns the domain-LF, which is the Linux Foundation help desk. And I have talked to Google myself, and Google says they will not talk to me unless I'm the main account holder. And I am not.
Okay, so you can't even put like other people as primaries. It's just like one account.
Yes.
Primary.
Correct.
Okay. I feel like we have to talk to like Dan and the team with this, because like the problem is that the primary is whatever -LF that account, right?
Well,
So Dan is on the call here.
Dan, would you like to chime in?
No, unfortunately, I'm just not up to speed on the issue, but I'm certainly happy to come back to you.
Okay. So to me, it seems like we're kind of blocked on having a conversation with the CNCF folks on potential solutions, unless there's something that we can do here on this call together. If I'm not correct, please like correct me. But if that is the case, then sharing that service desk account and having Brandon and I kind of jump in and help foster that.
So I'm a little bit confused. I mean, what exactly are we asking for here? So we want to be able to contact Google support and actually be able to have a relationship. But is there something concrete that we want to ask Google support around?
What I'm asking for is more accounts. So
Okay, that's not a Google support thing. That's a different use of the G Suite that we have.
I want to just give them I want to give a solution architect all the inventory and everything that we're doing right now to date as far as operation is concerned, and then have someone go, no, actually it might be better for you to have every SIG chair have XYZ, instead of us trying to do these like things where we're throwing them out and then failing and then like having to redo calendars 45 times.
Do we have a document or an issue that summarizes the current problems we have and it links to the CNCF help desk issue?
I could create one.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing that worries me, Paris, is that like, I think we're using G Suite in a sort of non-standard way where we want to use it. And like we hit this a bunch of different places, right? Where essentially we want to use it as a place where we can get API, host some calendars, host some mailing lists. But most of the people that are going to be sort of going through that are going to be external. And that is, I think, a bit of a different use case. I'm not sure that
Not
like
entirely. I mean, I do that with my nonprofit right now.
Okay, then why do we need a solution engineer then? I mean, like, I'm just wondering, like, did you use a solution engineer to do this?
No, we haven't. Like, that's what I'm saying. We're just
No,
kind
no,
of.
I mean, with a nonprofit.
No, but my nonprofit is considerably smaller than, I mean,
Well,
we're all
and
in
that's
one
what I'm
time
saying.
zone, right? We're in one time zone.
I think what I'm trying to say is that, like, I'm not saying we shouldn't use G Suite for this stuff. What I'm saying is, I think, like, pinning our hopes on a Google solution architect being able to really understand our use case and help us out seems like a bit of a stretch in my mind.
Isn't that what they're there for?
Joe?
Regardless, I think we need to get concrete about what we need first, because there's seems to be a lot of different issues, and it's really unclear even what permission model we'd have. And to Joe's point, like the G Suite does have a bunch of stuff that also is like sensitive and like private mailing lists and stuff. And so we just need to make sure we understand what the request is, who needs administrative rights to what, and then we can go from there. This conversation, I don't think, can proceed much further until
And no one is asking for more administrative rights. Like, I think the only thing I need administratively right now is for somebody at Linux Foundation to tell Google that it's okay to talk to me and Alex and a couple of people about how our current setup is and how we can make this better for our SIGs.
Yeah, and down the road, what we're really just going to need is some more accounts.
Well, okay, but those are two separate requests.
Definitely, Joe, but I think the point that Paris is making is she wants to consult people who have more and broader experience using G Suite in varying ways to see if there is best practice or variation that they have seen that could help us.
Bingo.
Yeah, no, and I get that, and I think it's probably worthwhile. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think we need to be very crisp about what we're looking for, and I think we need to scale our expectations of what we're going to get out of a solution architect for like a free account.
I think you're the only person who has said pin our hopes on. I don't think there are any hopes pinned on.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so we shouldn't block on that, and we should continue to solve our own problems, like getting more accounts, right?
Hold on. There's like three. Now I'm super confused. There's like three conflated issues. We have a request for more accounts. We have a request to be able to speak to a solutions architect, and we have a number of problems that we hope a solution architect might be able to advise us on.
I think the solution architect will advise us if we need more accounts. I mean, I think Alex is saying that his experience is alluding him to the fact that we probably will need more accounts, but his scale isn't necessarily where ours is right now, but a solution architect will let us know. I mean, we technically have like 40 departments here. So like if we're running this as a business in operational standpoint, like I just want other people who are more qualified with this stuff to help us out so that we're not just continually making mistakes.
Okay. So the first request is that either you are directly be able to talk to Google, or that somebody from Linux Foundation works with you to talk to a Google Solutions Architect and you discuss the problems that we have. That's
correct.
Okay.
Or a support person or a TAM or somebody that's on the account that can like help us go, oh, wow, no, you're not using this right, etc.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful for the steering committee, as well as for the people who would be involved, to have a canonical issue that we can reference as part of the discussion. Because right now there's a lot of, there are bits of information, but I don't have the concrete list of what is the actual set of issues that we are trying to solve. I just think it helps to educate everyone else who's currently trying to understand the set of problems that exist.
Okay, so to conclude this conversation, I think we need to get a concrete list of problems and then get Michelle and I on the service desk ticket, and we'll try to get either a partner on the Linux Foundation to work with Paris to brainstorm how to solve the problems in the yet to be written document, or get Paris directly in touch through whatever administrative contact update we have to do. Sounds like a reasonable plan.
Is that good with you, Paris?
Yes. I mean, and this also goes with Slack too. So like if we ever have a security incident with Slack, like who do we contact? And like anything else that we pay for, like GitHub, like do the people that run GitHub have like the appropriate contacts? Like this is the stuff that we're working on in contributor experience right now with scaling our moderation. And we're just finding these pitfalls in certain areas. So I guess this is just that I just wanted to kind of bring this up as a broader topic as well today. I didn't necessarily want to go into the details. I can provide the details in a document. But just from a wider perspective, like just managing community infrastructure, like who owns what's the scope, et cetera. So I just kind of wanted to put that on everybody's forefront as well.
So are you saying you're having issues getting quick response out of
Yes.
Service Desk?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think what needs to be happening, and the CNCF has been asked several times to do this, is that if there's a request coming in, that it make sure that it ends up in the request queue for Kubernetes. I see I see one request from Paris in the Kubernetes request queue in the CNCF service desk right now. So either they're not doing the right thing or something messed up with service desk again. So Dan, could you please take that back, or I can send an email, because every single thing Paris requests should end up in the Kubernetes request queue.
And this is also predating our service desk, our need for service desk tickets as well. It's just been, like I'd say, the last year in general with moderation. We just have an issue with the admins on the front line being able to contact for whatever reason the actual platform itself.
Right. And I would say the state of the art should be the CNCF is being responsive. And if that's like, we need to measure whether that's happening, and we either need to get the CNCF to be accountable to being responsive, or we need to figure out another thing. But right now we have no data on whether they're being responsive or not. So could you either gather that data or
Yep. I'll put a ticket in to request that we have a process for reaching out to support.
Okay. Yeah.
And Joe, we do pay for at least one of our organizations for GitHub. So there is some relationship. I don't think KK is, or Kubernetes, the org is, but there is something in there.
Yeah.
I think, my concern here is, I think we should try and engage with these companies, but I think we also have to realize that the way we're using a lot of these products, and I think GitHub is probably an exception to that rule, but for most of the other stuff that we're using it in a way that is probably outside of the core scenarios that they're actually building around. And so, not saying that we shouldn't try and engage, we totally should. I just think that we have to probably set our expectations appropriately around that.
But Joe, do you have an alternative suggestion?
Well, I think, this is one of the reasons why we did discuss as an alternative to some of this stuff. It is really built around communities with a lot of moderation features, right? We could look at moving off of mailing lists onto something like Discuss. There's ways to treat it like a mailing list. Similarly, Slack we're obviously stretching that to its limits in terms of what we can do. There's no easy answer there. With respect to G Suite, I think, there's ways that I think we can make it work. I mean, I have a personal G Suite account that I'm abusing in various ways, but I think we should, it's probably going to be up to us to sort of use our elbow grease to do that. And if we can get a solution architect that can really help us out, that would be great. I just think that it's going to be, I predict it'll be an uphill battle.
I hear Outlook does calendaring very well.
Well, I think one of the other things, I mean, another thing to look at with respect to mailing lists is that, you know, what is the service that the Linux Foundation uses for the CNCF? And I think, doesn't Helm use the same service? Michelle, do you remember?
For what?
For
It's
mailing
called
lists.
groups.io.
Yeah, whatever Dan gives.
And we pay for that, but I'm not at all convinced that that provides a better service than Google Groups.
It also breaks all of our access control for docs.
Well, so the reason why we need access control for docs is because of the, you know, Googlers creating stuff with their corporate Gmail accounts, right?
To be fair, it's also Red Hatters. Like, there's a lot of people who have the same.
It's not just like we would all have to be creating them on our own Gmail personal addresses.
Yes. The access control for docs is really important regardless of what company you work at. I have always used my gmail.com address to make sure that like SIG testing notes are runnable by SIG testing's leads.
But like one of the features that we're talking about with G Suite is to actually use team drives, and you can't move documents across organizations with team drives. So like as long as people are creating documents using their company or even their personal accounts, we can't use team drives. So it's just an example of how that particular feature was crafted for a use case that doesn't line up with the way that we.
I kind of feel like we're bike shedding out loud again. Like we just said we didn't want to. And for context, like discussion has been ongoing since January.
Okay. So I hear anger in your voice, Aaron. I was asked if this, like what my concerns were, and so I'm responding. I wasn't going to say anything else on this, but like specifically I was asked. So, you know, there's no reason to get angry.
Okay.
I heard frustration, not anger, but
I get frustrated at our propensity to bike shed. That's all. I'm just saying, I feel like we have invested time in trying to look around at our available options, and this is what we have landed on with a documented proposal. And yes, this is why we would now like to talk to the experts to figure out how to make the best use of our product. Accepting that it might be a little weird and wonky, they probably have more subject matter expertise than we do, and we should let them bike shed.
And accepting that we may have to change our processes to fit our requests and our tools. And that may be the case, but let's not change them multiple times, which is what I think Paris's concern is we have tried a number of different ways and broken them a number of times. So now we really need to bring in the experts.
Okay.
Right. So all we are looking.
The action items are to Paris to document the current state of affairs and get Michelle and I on the current tickets. Then we can revisit it after that happens. I think we've already burned half the meeting on this.
And log enough requests in the CNCF queue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are in the notes.
All right. So the next agenda item was to walk the current milestone. Before I do that, are there any other topics that folks want to discuss? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, your window is passed. The next one is, for those who were on steering call last time, we decided that we were missing some milestones, some arbitrary lines in the sand or dates that we could set that served kind of as a forcing function for us to rally and execution behind things, because we had a propensity to just kind of move things along over time. So I groomed the backlog, created a milestone. They're all pretty and colorful, and I was going to walk through the ones that are currently active today. So any questions there before I start going through it?
Yep.
All right, so I will walk through the active ones currently. Formalized subprojects. We talked about this. I had a request, and Aaron did a PR to add that capability. And I know that Dims, you also did a PR, which was a little bit more than that. And Brian had a comment talking back and forth to Nikita. In my opinion, I think this is done, but I want to solicit feedback from others to see what their thoughts are in current state, what things they would like before we close this.
Hey, just for me following along, are we going in reverse order? Or is there?
I'm working through lifecycle active. So right now I go in priority order, and I just went backwards from the bottom up because I'm just walking through.
Okay, cool.
So I feel like we have a bunch of places to iterate on sub-projects, but I feel like they're a well-defined thing that have well-defined channels of contact right now. Yes, you do have to hop into owners files to find people, but let's presume that to be something we will iterate on.
Brian, did you have any other last requests with regards to the state of Formalize?
I think this issue can be closed. There, as mentioned in Nikita's comment, there's an umbrella issue in the community repo and a number of other issues. They're open tracking improvements. So I agree with Aaron that sub-projects are well defined, and now we're improving the automation.
All right, cool. Quick refresh. Document user groups and user group formation.
Yeah, this is assigned to me. If possible, I'd like to actually have someone from the maybe community lead it, and then I can help them. I've developed documentation for different governance pieces already, and this might be a good opportunity for someone to gain experience in this type of work. I don't know if
clear and unambiguous.
What's that?
My concern is we are maybe not clear and unambiguous on what a user group is. Like part of the issue that Nikita and Dims ran into with previous PRs is they bumped into a lot of pontification about what a sub-project really was. So do we feel like we're clear on what a user group really is and it's just logistics? Somebody should be able to answer me with a link to a document right now.
We did document what user groups were. The text that defines them is fairly short, but I think it's also not that complicated.
Okay, cool. There was recently work to overlap the formation of SIGs in working groups, and dedupe some governance stuff there. Could probably fold in user group stuff there.
Yeah, Paris did a big PR for that.
So what is your formalization of your ask, Phil?
Would someone from the community take lead on writing it, and then I can help you formulate it and talk through ideas? I guess would be my ask.
Okay.
If we can't find any volunteers, then I'll probably default to doing it myself. I'm sure I can get this done before May. But I think like grooming people in leadership roles, this might be a really good potential task.
Okay. Is there any venue besides this venue? Is there anyone on the call currently that would like to step up to help Phil?
I can also send it to steering.io, and subscribers of that might get it, or maybe Contribex. Paris, do you think folks from Contribex might be interested in this sort of work, or?
I mean, we can
so
always,
much?
no, we can always ask. I think they would be interested. I just don't know if anybody has any cycles, but there's no harm in asking for sure.
Okay, so I'll probably, Tim, what do you think of, I'll send some feelers out on Steering.io and Contribex and anything else I can think of, and then if I don't get any bites in the next week or two, I'll just start putting it together myself.
Sounds good. I'm just trying to write something up real quick.
And now we're all watching somebody in these super bling shades type on a mechanical keyboard. It's amazing.
It's a nice sounding keyboard. What is that?
It is. It is a mechanical keyboard. Once I got used to it, I couldn't escape it. So I'll give a brief update with the cloud provider one. Both Nishi and Andrew Sai Kim are going to give an update during the next steering committee meeting. We've been talking and conversing about their proposal that they have, and they want to just basically give an update to the steering committee. For the most part, the TLDR from the community perspective is that most of the cloud providers, I think all the cloud providers are bought in and they agree to the idea of collapsing into having many sub-projects in a single SIG. So things look like they're on track there. Are there any questions? Going once, twice, 3 times.
So quick question, just the rough timeline sounded like this merge would happen prior to KubeCon San Diego.
The goal of getting things in this milestone was hopefully before EU. But
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see where we're at, right?
Okay.
I have to double check their current time frame inside their document.
Sounds good.
And we haven't heard any concerns from SIGs about this plan. Everybody seems to be on board.
Yep, they've walked around and got buy-in from everybody. So they've done all the due diligence and the hard work. So
yeah, steady pressure over time.
Exactly. Last but not least was community resource management. And that kind of falls underneath that larger umbrella that Paris was talking about earlier. But I think this one was like documenting the homes or who actually hands the credentials and details here. Was there any update to this, Paris?
We have all of that kind of documentation located inside of the community folder and, or excuse me, the communication folder inside of the community repo. I'll get the link right now. I feel like between that and all of the moderation docs that we've done recently, this meets the criteria for what you're looking for, maybe. Hold on, getting that out right now. And paste it into Zoom chat.
I had one minor question that maybe is answered by that. I don't know. It feels like we own most of our assets except for a few things that the CNCF owns. And I was interested, I was poking around the blog the other day, and it seems like Docs owns the machinery for it, and Contribex has some influence over it, but both of those explicitly call it out of scope. There is no place that explicitly says who owns the content on the blog. So I'm assuming it's like a list of people in the owners file in the blog directory, and it seems like those are all Linux Foundation people. I just wanted to say that out loud and make sure we all agree that that's the appropriate thing and that's correct.
The actual, like, full-on Kubernetes blog?
Yes, kubernetes.io/blog.
It's not just Linux Foundation people. I mean, I submitted a pull request yesterday.
So submitting pull requests is one thing, but who has final say?
The reviewers and the owners files?
Right.
Well, let me check the pull request.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that those owners don't roll up through the Kubernetes project. Is that the point you're trying to make, Aaron?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to make that, and they recently switched it so like whoever the root owners are in Kubernetes website can make that call as well. I'm just trying to figure out, like, now that we've done the grand chartering across all the SIGs, I have 2 SIGs that explicitly say they're not responsible for the content, and I'd like to understand who is responsible for the content, because it's unclear to me whether it's just a couple random select individuals in the project, or is it a total coincidence that they all happen to work for the Linux Foundation.
I can tell you my pull request was assigned to Bobski.
And my understanding is that traditionally that's been driven by the marketing folks from the CNCF.
Well, yeah, not only that, but Bobski is a former Googler who's not working on Kubernetes, as an example.
Well, there we go.
Right. I think I'm just, it is maybe that ask of like, so the marketing stuff isn't owned by the Kubernetes project at all. It's something we've delegated entirely to the CNCF.
Right. I think, so is the question like, should this actually, one of our goals is every artifact in the Kubernetes project gets assigned to a SIG, right? The blog is an artifact. It's not assigned to a SIG.
No, SIGDocs, to answer the question in chat, SIGDocs explicitly says they are not owners of the content. And yeah, I think I'm asking, like, I think it'd be really cool if the community owned the content. I'm just asking, is it okay if the community owns the content? Because right now, like, it's unclear that we're allowed to.
Well, yeah, and I think some of that is like, theoretically, if the steering committee wanted to actually exercise editorial control over the blog, that would officially be under the purview of the steering committee, I'm guessing, but because it's not assigned to a SIG and like the Linux Foundation does what the Linux Foundation does, like where's that reporting line of control, responsibility, oversight around that? Is that kind of what you're getting at, Aaron?
Yes, I think I'm kind of curious what Dan's perspective is on this, since he's on.
I'll just share with it that Zach, I believe, already was, I mean, he now works for the Linux Foundation, but I believe he was already in the line of control prior to that. And so the actual process right now is that Zach and Caitlin are responsible for reviewing proposed blog posts and enforcing a neutral, non-vendor oriented tone with them. It's not a, I don't know, formal Linux Foundation marketing effort.
So is what role does Zach have at LF? Like, is he marketing? Is he what's his domain?
He's a doc writer, full-time doc writer focused on CNCF and our projects.
Okay, so Aaron, do you want to? Should we file a service desk ticket to request control of the content of the Kubernetes blog?
I don't know if I don't know if this needs a service desk ticket. Like, I'm happy to go take it to SIG Docs and ask them. I just felt like it was a useful discussion to have at a steering level, because I think it is really informal and the content is run by community members. I hear Dan's assertion that by having the people who have final say work for a vendor neutral organization helps ensure that the content is vendor neutral. But I feel like we have a wide variety of chairs and a wide variety of SIGs, and thus far this project has managed to remain pretty vendor neutral. So I'd be willing to trust any other chair of SIG Docs, not just Zach, because he happens to work for the Linux Foundation. But if I'm the only person,
yeah,
I'm happy to back off of that.
No, and Aaron, I didn't mean to imply it was necessary. I was just stating the way it's worked the last 2 years, essentially, since Google handed over control. The Bobsky thing is just an artifact of the fact that he used to be in charge of it. And so, I mean, it seems natural to me for it to become a subgroup of SIG Docs.
Okay. I can take an action item to go engage with SIG Docs on this and see if there are community members who would be interested in helping out.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at recent blog posts, there are some stuff that in my mind sort of skirt the edge of actually being vendor neutral. Focusing on projects that are not part of Kubernetes and are very much aligned with particular vendors. And so I think having some more oversight, or at least sunlight in terms of how those things are proposed and who's saying yes would be helpful for me.
I'd like to say on Caitlin's behalf, because we've discussed the blog, that I know she at least would love to have community members volunteering to help review potential blog posts. They've got quite a backlog because nobody's been working on that. And so taking ownership of it, if nobody's going to staff it, is not really going to change things.
I guess I should throw my hat in here. I mean, the reason I joined all these SIGs is to do blog stuff. I mean, if there is no if this all flushes out and nobody else is willing to do it, you can hand this all to me and I can take it over. I only just started contributing, so I felt weird volunteering.
I mean, I'll throw something out there also. It's like, it would be great if there was a calendar in terms of stuff coming up and the topics and sort of who's proposing it were run by the steering committee, so that like if folks had concerns, they could bring it up. I think there's a difference between, editing these things, which obviously is, a different motion from just, hey, are even the things that we're covering on the blog vendor neutral?
I'm not sure I'm asking to increase the surface area of the steering committee's responsibilities.
No. Delegate this to me. This is my day job at Red Hat.
Well, no. Just to be clear, I want to be clear. This is the type of thing where everything is under the steering committee's responsibilities. If we can't find a SIG to own it, and if we don't get sunlight, then it actually devolves to the steering committee. And so the question here is like, I don't think we should assign a single person here, because there is editorial control in terms of like, what are the topics that the blog takes up?
Yeah.
And so what I would like to do is like, hey, if there's a blog post that is, very much, boosting an effort from a single vendor that we don't think is actually widely supported by the rest of the community, that's something that we could say, hey, maybe this is not something for the Kubernetes blog.
So just as an example, the way we do this at Red Hat is like that stuff is done by committee, and the actual act of maintaining the calendar and making sure so-and-so gets their blog in, that's done by somebody who's in charge, right? Like, so if you want to make up that kind of an agreement.
Yeah, I would just like, I'll look at the topics. What's that?
Caitlin Bernard has all of this. Like she keeps a schedule. She keeps like you can go in right now and see all the blogs that are queued up because to contribute to a blog, you have to submit a PR and then she changes the date. So, I mean, they have a process around this stuff. So I don't know how maybe steering committee can be like added into that process if that's what y'all are asking for.
No, the ask is pretty explicit, and I understand what Joe's getting at, is that usually we have a SIGtatorship, right, for lack of a better term, and SIGs are delegated responsibility and authority. And people, and all those SIGs come and go, but at least you have a single location which is shared, either as a sub-project of a SIG or as a SIG itself that has the ownership of that artifact, right? And I think what Joe is trying to ascertain, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we should really not assign this to one person, but we should assign this to a sub-project of a SIG or a SIG itself.
All right, Aaron's got this. Let's move on.
So I would like to pull out a meta point from this, which is we've talked a couple of times about how other projects have a monthly update, one-on-one time, whatever, with the CNCF. It seems more and more that we should be setting this up with the steering committee and CNCF staff, so that we can address these things not by just being frustrated and trying to figure out solutions and not having enough information crossing paths between the two groups, but just bringing it together in maybe one of these steering committee meetings. Who knows?
So, okay, I want to be super explicit here, and I want to call out a particular post that I was just looking into. There was the recent post on the Operator Hub. This was actually, the PR was submitted and then it was approved over the course of an hour. So it's pretty clear to me that this particular blog post was discussed out of band, and then somebody sort of like, wanted to keep it under embargo before it became part of the Kubernetes blog. And so from my point of view, like, there should be no surprises in open source, right? If you want to actually do a big announcement, do that on your site. But let's make sure that stuff that is very much driven by vendors stays on the vendor's blog, and we don't actually have that stuff go through the Kubernetes blog. I'll post that PR in here. So over the course of an hour, this was submitted and approved. And so this is the type of thing where I think we just got to be very careful that, like, hey, here's the new features in 1.14. Yeah, let's do that on the Kubernetes blog. Here's a new effort that's being sponsored by a single company. I think we should be able to careful about that.
We don't know what the current process is, so it's really hard to know whether they're even using PRs. Maybe it's getting reviewed in Google Docs. I think let's just have Aaron go figure out what's currently happening, and I agree it should be brought into a SIG.
Paris also just posted the current editorial process.
Sorry, this is Derek.
Yeah, I don't have permissions for that one.
I actually don't know the history on that blog that Joe's referencing, but like I do know there's a blog that I know Alex and myself were working on around like a Kube 1.14 feature. I guess I actually don't know how blogs get solicited to that. My experience has been that someone from CNCF reaches out to an individual member of the community and asks them to blog about a topic. But I guess, like you, Joe, I'd be curious how lead generation actually occurs. Like, but that was my understanding of the experience, was that someone reached out rather than.
Yeah, like that's exactly what happened. Somebody reached out to Derek over one for the process ID limiting thing. And we just submitted that one. So it was very much the reaching out from Caitlin's side.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Could we please stop like shedding on another thing and move on?
Okay. So I'm going to request that as we have notes, please don't put them in Zoom chat if we're trying to use the issues as the canonical source of reference, because a lot of times I'm trying to put the data into the issue, but that way we can actually just move forwards with that issue and have all the data be there if that's possible.
Can I ask one question? Paris, is there a way, you posted a link to the comms channels, right? Is it linked off of somewhere else?
It's in a former issue. I'm in the middle of getting that doc checked in to GitHub.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Have we beaten this horse to death, or should we move on?
Yes. Next.
All right, Brandon, because you're talkative. We assigned you and Michelle this general issue, and we talked about it last time. It was basically, we don't have visibility or insight into what are the current requests that are ongoing, how do we get, how do we prioritize them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah, I can work on this.
Can help. Feel free to add me to whatever thread I'm in.
Yeah, we've already assigned you here, but we're just marking it as lifecycle active.
Okay. I'm thinking like well, there's 2 requests, which is what's going on, and then maybe like also the process. So I've been thinking a little bit about the process and how to build a template for requesting things. So we can talk about that offline.
All right, so I think I've taken care of all of the important soon items. No, ecosystem and project governments. I was supposed to work on this, I didn't. So. Yeah, I'm gonna punt on this one because I'd have to reread the issue. Oh, this is governance of the ecosystem projects.
I'm very confused. I was very confused by this issue because we have our own governance in some of these projects.
We do, and I realized the comment I put there was because we've already, with that federation of subprojects stuff that we have, that we wrote up a long time ago that Brendan originally wrote, I don't know if this is even an issue anymore.
Yeah, I can't even find that doc around associated repos and all of that. So I'm gonna try to find that as well. If anybody knows where that is, please let me know.
I will.
Was this Brendan's original doc?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can try and dig that up.
It's under GitHub administration.
Yeah, I have the link. I'll put it into this issue and close it.
All right, so Brandon said he's going to help. All right, so we have many things that are currently active. I'll go to the long-term important items real quick. Code of conduct documentation.
I did see a note for reviewing the charter, but I haven't done that yet. Are there any other updates? Anybody from the Code of Conduct Committee?
No updates on my end other than that we are currently blocked at committee and we're still updating the charter.
So is it ready for review by the steering committee or should we?
No, it's still, there's a couple committee members are at disagreement on some of the items. So we are still working that out at our stage.
Okay, great. Just send steering a note whenever y'all are ready. But if there's anything I can do to help unblock, let me know.
100%. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm just gonna use that for the time being, just to denote it. I'll put it in the project board update. Staffing gaps and conflict resolution. We talked about this last time. We assigned people to work on it, which was Brian and Paris. Brian or Paris, do you have any update here?
no update. I just unfortunately haven't had any cycles.
What does the conflict resolution refer to? Personnel conflicts, priority conflicts, just a general thing.
I think mainly, I don't know about the conflict resolution part, but as far as staffing gaps go, there are efforts to define roles. We have the role board, SIG contributor experiences defining roles. I was thinking it'd be helpful to have some suggested roles for SIGs as part of the SIG governance information. Since most SIGs have not made much progress on defining roles. That's what I was thinking about in this area.
This reads wildly broadly scoped. I'm not sure I would ever feel comfortable closing this issue. There's no way we can comprehensively resolve each of those bullet points.
Yeah, I think this issue was pulled out of, we had a number of umbrella issues with a bunch of backlog items around the bootstrap governance time before the first election. And that was broken down into multiple sub-issues, but this still had multiple points in it, obviously. So it wasn't really well scoped or concrete. I would also be fine with closing this in favor of more specific issues.
Yeah, like my personal take is, do we have a well-defined path for conflict resolution? Yes. If it's personnel conflict resolution, it's code of conduct. If it's technical conflict resolution, it bubbles up through the SIGs. If all of the SIGs can't seem to agree, it bubbles up to steering committee. For effort gaps, the biggest one on my mind is just running the project infrastructure, and that's being handled through the Kubernetes infrastructure working group, or Kate's Infra. And we could very much use dedicated staff for that. And we may find we want to come back and ask for resources of LF for that particular thing. But I think we don't have that concrete ask right now.
Could we outline, because the one thing that we can agree upon that is currently a problem that we don't actually have any line of sight on, other than we have a role board, is to take up documentation of just outlining what are the staffing gaps or how to rectify, rationalize, et cetera, et cetera.
Staffing gaps for what?
For the project.
Yeah, for example, SIG testing, anything that is across the board, right? Flakiness, that kind of stuff. So I think we can.
Yeah, so there are two levels that we've encountered this in the past. One is, or maybe three. So one is things that need to be done within SIGs where they're not finding people to step up and own those tasks. And often that's just because people can't see the forest through the trees. So that's why we created the role board. Then there is at the higher level across the project, which SIGs are sort of in most desperate need of help or people for new contributors who are trying to find areas to contribute. So in the past, I had surveyed some SIGs and just posted to Kubernetes dev saying, hey, if you'd like to contribute, try one of these areas. It's been a long time since I did that. For the UI, there was a special effort to try to solicit help with the UI as well. So it's sort of sporadic and not very structured right now in how we do that. And then the third area is things that don't really fall under any SIG. So the infra working group is one example of that. And we're trying to reduce the number of things that fall outside of all the SIGs, but there are still a few of those things. So this specific issue is really old and was derived from something even older. So it's not super relevant or specific itself at the moment, but we still need to try to keep improving in these areas, I feel, on the staffing gap front and how we fill those.
So can we open another issue on just the staffing stuff so we can at least write up what you just said, Brian?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Brian, would it be possible for you to open that issue?
Yeah, I can do that.
Can I raise an adjacent point? Brandon Phillips and I recently chatted with a lot of CNCF maintainers, and we just kind of did a few calls and got some feedback, and it just really opened our eyes to a lot of different things that were happening. We don't necessarily, to my knowledge, have a meeting with the SIG chair, excuse me. So I think it might prove beneficial to like set up those kinds of same calls with SIG chairs, so we can just gather some feedback about what they need and write some stuff down, get a better idea of where we are right now post the whole, formalizing SIG charters and all that. So would that be something that other people agree with doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea, Michelle.
I'm happy to take lead on that. And then that's when we can also talk about staffing gaps, like, yeah.
So on the issue that you open up, Brian, can you assign Michelle then?
Sure.
All right, we are T-minus 2 minutes. We've gone through everything that's in the current May 2019 milestone. It looks like we actually are making progress. We've closed some issues. Other things people actually did help us with. So I want to call out and give props to Nikita. She's been awesome. She's been helping out quite a bit on helping to get these pieces in place in the community repository. And also thanks to Paris too as well for helping step up on some of these issues. Are there any last? Go ahead.
Oh, could I just make a request? I put it higher up in the notes of a pull request that needs the steering committee review, presumably at a future meeting, or perhaps it's uncontroversial enough that you could do it offline. But it's about a change to the logo licensing rules.
Oh, I already reviewed that, and I think it just needs level approver access. I don't know if it needs whole steering committee reviews, because I don't.
Well, it's really up to you guys to decide. So if you can approve it, that would be awesome.
Yeah. If you can post that in the document, if you already have. I know this is quite long, so I'd have to take a look. Do you have the issue number off of hand, just so that while you have the steering committee here, if somebody has level approval access, they can take a look at it? Is it this one?
I think just because this is it's an issue that kind of like is between the steering committee and the CNCF on how things work. In terms of branding, we should just get like, to some majority, or however we decided in our charter to get like a vote for this topic.
Okay. There's how many days? It's been 9 days. We do have the, what's it called? Timeout expiration. Silence is consensus. So it's currently been 9 days. I think everyone on the steering committee has been CC'd, but we can default. I'll go through and defaultly assign.
If you really need the steering committee's attention, please email the steering committee mailing list. GitHub notifications go to DevNull. We all know this, but otherwise, I agree. I'll take a look. I have to go. Losing room. Bye.
That was my mistake, Aaron. I'll email it now. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We're at time.
Thanks posting, Tim. Bye.
Thanks, Tim. Bye, everyone.